never follow talented kids and a very cute puppy. Don't. Team. Together, everyone achieves more. I've been in this district since 1985, and I remember when that was something that meant all of us. I know it still means all of us. Particularly in the last 8 years or so, it has become very difficult, and two of the major changes on that side is a new superintendent and one particular board member who was elected in 2010. And it feels like we have been fighting an uphill battle ever since, and it's hard for all of you. It's kind of my job, but it's hard for all of you, and it's definitely hard on the kids, and it's hard on the community. And it feels like we're stuck, and it feels like something needs to change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Now we have people who would like to speak. Mr. Jeff Beckley. Ms. Corpus after Mr. Beckley.
Good evening. I do have one request, if it's okay. There's somebody here who is an elder statesman to me, and he had expressed that he might not like to follow and that he'd have something to say, and I love the man and respect him tremendously. And I wonder if there's any possibility that we could bring Mr. Corpus up to speak before me. Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you to Mr. Beckley for letting me go first, because I told him I'm getting older and I might forget what I was going to say. It happens. Don't worry about it. So I just want to address the board. I am supporting Measure EE. It's a great name. How do we do that? I must give them $20 for our voters. But we do have to pass that, regardless of any animosity that's currently with the negotiations. Passing Measure E, aka the parcel tax, has got to be done. It just has to be done. We have to separate it out. I know it's hard. We have to separate it out, get that passed, and then take care of your other business. I know that's hard, but it just needs to be done, and that's all. That's what I'm advocating for here now. That's what he advocated for at the past board meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corpus.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Wilson. Jeff Beckley, O.B. Whaley School. All the teachers have our walking shoes ready, just in case we need to take to the streets, to protect the rights of our children, our community, and ourselves from a school board and district that spreads deceit as it mistreats the children and the teachers who make the Evergreen School District great, the children and the teachers who carry most of the weight. Children and teachers are truly tired, constantly being asked to do much more for and with much less. You simply may not keep taking from the overworked who work hard and are stressed. As you, this board and this district, continually drag us down in the mud. We asked for 0.5% of wages we've earned, and you react like we asked for your blood. Now, anything that threatens the health of our children, who though they be minors, in the future will play a major role. Any threats should be excised immediately when they affect the children's educational health as a whole. It's painfully obvious our board has an ailment, a malady both diabolical and macabre, a demonic malignancy that must be exorcised so that those who teach and those who learn may truly focus on their jobs. Sadly, we teachers are not priests, no holy water, but we do teach PE. Our teachers know the value of exercise, and walking is incredibly healthy. We've been working the walk and roll program. Children understand walking keeps us healthy and whole. Evergreen was once healthy, but is not whole anymore. Seems a walk is just what's needed to heal Evergreen's body and soul, especially when Evergreen School District is in the black, financially certified for the next 3 years as stable. And still they want to raise children class size and cut teachers' pay? It seems the board and superintendent want to eat everything off our table. You've had several solutions in front of you which you've studiously ignored and sidestepped for years. Closure of any school surely sucks, no doubt, but it would be better for all after the sadness and tears. And you act and you posture like it's necessary to take, paying a public liaison to air only your side, who types out things that are patently untrue and then in the same communication states teachers lied. And the saddest thing that rankles us the most is that it's truly about nothing more than your quest for power. You seem to think that saving on the backs of children and teachers will make you the man or woman of the hour, but it makes you nothing more than a bully whose only thoughts are to threaten and to take from those you perceive to be weaker than you, but this perception is your biggest mistake. Together, teachers will stand and our numbers are strong, and we are ready to walk marathons no matter how long, to battle a board and district that seeks to do wrong. So if you're going to push us, we are going to push back, not something teachers want to do, but you started the attack. So now we are ready to walk circles around you to undo that evil hoodoo voodoo that you do.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, teachers. My name is Shamira Jalali, and my kid goes to Evergreen Elementary. Sorry. And I come from a culture where we are taught mother is equivalent to God, father is equivalent to God, and a teacher is equivalent to God. The same way a mother and father form pillars of a family, the teacher forms the pillar of a community. When teachers suffer, it's not just them, but it's the students who will suffer and the entire community suffers. Good communities cannot be formed without good teachers, and teachers deserve better. So here is our petition with over 1,000 signatures requesting Evergreen School District to revisit the decisions, please. And when you are making some hard decisions, please bear in mind not just the finances, but also the entire community of Evergreen. Sincerely, a concerned parent.
Good evening, members of the board and audience. My name is Patty Andrade, and my boys attend Carolyn Clark Elementary and Quimby Middle School. I am here this evening to say enough is enough. What kind of district have we become? I have often spoken of my pride in our schools. I have spoken of our love for our teachers because they are the ones who have helped inspire and motivate my kids. I have 2 middle schoolers. All my boys are up there. Who are up way before they should be because they look forward to attending their classes. And I'm talking about getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and they get in trouble for that because I'm not getting up at that hour. They look forward to attending their classes. They love their teachers. They talk about them all the time. Even my 5th grader, who is now by himself at the elementary school, loves attending school, and he loves his teacher. Okay, our family has experienced what passionate teachers can do. Evergreen School District is full of passionate teachers. I know because our family has been honored to have them as part of our lives. If students are truly the priority of the district, then you need to stop this madness. Our teachers have always put my boys first, and it shows by the way my boys speak about all of their teachers in their classes, by the way, they talk about their admins, by the way they talk about the librarians, by the way they talk about the staff in general. Even as parents, my husband and I have become better parents because of our teachers. They have also taught us how to let go. And I always tell the story of our kinder teacher, Mrs. Gresh, first-time parents, right? She taught me, more than my husband, that it was okay, that my son would be okay as she closed the door in my face. But he'd come home and he'd have the great stories. She taught me well. It is time to move forward. This is not the kind of school district this is not the kind of school district that our students deserve. It takes a village to raise these kids. And my kids are perfect examples of the kind of teachers we have in the school district. Please, we have to stop this. Our teachers matter. Nothing else is going to matter if the teachers in the classroom aren't the best that are out there. Thank you.
Good evening, how are you? It is so nice to be here amongst this amazing group of people, and I am concerned about the mismanagement of resources by the Evergreen Elementary School Board. We've been going through a headache for a long time. You folks have been given some really prime opportunities to try to right the ship, and you've been incapable of doing so. Our negotiating team has been working awfully hard for it. They put in extra time, they're honest, they live their lives with integrity, and they're trying to do right by themselves, their peers, and the community. And for whatever reason or combination of reasons, you folks are not meeting us halfway. And this is a very, very real problem. Strike is looming. Strike, question mark, exclamation point. This thing's gonna happen.
Yes, it is!
Unless we find a way, once again, to come together as people, maintaining our focus on what it is that we're truly trying to achieve, which is to contribute positively to our community so that good things can happen, right? I have no idea what was just screamed, but I do know that there's a lot of heart and soul in this room. Another concern I have is just mismanagement of resources. I've observed the district doing a really, really good job of creating a gap, an opportunity gap, actually. We're mirroring American society. We're not providing equal opportunities for all students, which is exactly what we should be doing. Education is an opportunity for us to close the gap, bring people together, and to do amazing things. Our board's policies, well, you're not letting that happen. I'll give you a quick example before I run out of time here. Maintenance, facilities, people in the cafeteria. You folks don't get the respect that you deserve. Without you, we're nothing. And they're leaving, they're retiring, and you can't fill the jobs because you won't compensate these people. And heck, we finally, as of 2 days ago, Governor Brown decided to compensate farm workers with overtime. They've just been making real minimum wage for about a year now. We don't want to be behind the times. My room smells like sewage, and it's not the kids, and it's not me. That's a problem. That affects our ability to learn, and we can do better, and we need to. I don't want us to strike, but if you can't meet us halfway. Is this happening, folks? Yeah! There's no joke. We need to wrap this up. Thank you.
Okay, now we go on to 4.1, approval of 2017-18 unaudited actuals. So we have two individuals who'd like to speak to that item, 4.1. Mr. Corpus and Mr. Wheatley.
Now that's the normal school board meeting applause. Appreciate the other. All right. We're going to go over the budget, the unaudited actuals. Just a great job of saving, because in June it was red, and now, as often happens, now they did a great job of position control. We had more students arrive, that brought in a little more money, and then there's some other things. Budgets are very tenuous, moving objects. So never look at the June budget. Go to the July and August meeting. You'll see truth kind of bubble up. So I'm interested to see in the narrative today what the, give me a lot more time. I'll use it. Well, how it is characterized, the new budget, and we're now black 3 years out, and how that's going to go into the current negotiations. Well, that happens anyway. Fact finding coming up next week, right? It's a good thing. But there should be facts apparent, not look at those numbers. That's what it was in June. Oh my God, the boogeyman. But now look at those numbers. Good job, good job. And those of you that have been around kind of know that. So you need June is different, July is different, August is different, and now September and October. So again, how is it going to be characterized? And I look forward to the budget presentation.
Hello again. So what you have before you is a comparison of several different sets of numbers, because I think it's useful for you to see, and I don't think as a board you often see it in this way. And by the way, if anybody's curious and wants to look at any point, if you go to etanews.org and in the top section, the parent section, there's one tab that says budget comparison, and you will see this as well if you'd like to have a peek at any point. So if we go back to 16-17 UA, that's the unaudited actuals. That's the real money for the previous year, for 16-17. So then the 17-18 adopted budget came out, and you'll notice something. The differences between what we had and what was projected to happen. So for example, the revenues were projected to go down $6 million. The ending balance was projected to go down $4.4 million. The unassigned budget was projected to go down $3.6 million. So then we had the unaudited actuals that came out that is coming out officially today, assuming you adopt it. And this is what really happened. So this is now the difference between what the budget was and what actually happened. And lo and behold, that for example, revenue actually went up $5 million. Right? So you can see through all of those numbers, so I won't take you through every single one. Down in the middle section there, where it looks at the unappropriated amount, and this is with the REU, the Reserve for Economic Uncertainty. So again, the district was projecting that from the real numbers in 16-17, it was supposed to go down 27.5%, from 13.2 million down to 9.6 million. Instead, lo and behold, it went up to 14.7 million. So rather than a minus 27.5, it went a plus 11.4. And here's the number that just blows my mind, I have to tell you, and I've been following our budgets for more than a decade. So we have the real numbers in terms of the unappropriated, and this is the number that you like to see, that because you take out the reserve for economic uncertainties as if that money doesn't exist. So I'll play along, took it out, and we actually have $14.7 million. You see there down in the bottom section. You are projecting in your budget that is traditionally incredibly conservative, that number will increase by 47.9%. This is your number, that by the end of this year, the unassigned, unappropriated amount of money we will have is projected to be $21,732,419. This presentation should be very interesting.
Good evening, members of the board. Last time I saw you was June 14th. And I didn't know I'd be back here on September 13th, so I'm delighted to have the chance to continue to work with the district. And I have a PowerPoint, which I also provided copies for you to write on or to follow along if you'd like. So there's more slides tonight than there was on June 13th because there's some very important information to share with you. So I'm going to start with the unrestricted general fund, which is the next slide. Which one? Right. Up?
Right arrow?
No.
Left arrow?
Sorry. All right, thanks. Sorry. All right, this is the unrestricted general fund, and what I've done is make it fairly simple. The light blue column is where the books currently stand before they're audited, and the independent audit team is actually doing their field work right now on site. But the middle column of numbers, the estimated actuals, that was what was brought to you on June 14th. And since that time, the closing of the books realized that the revenue is up $613,000 from various sources: increased lottery, a little more prior year state aid, mandated costs. It's traditional for districts to be conservative with the revenue. So this is 0.5% different than what was estimated. It's a very close projection. These numbers were provided by Ms. Yang. Then total expenditures also unrestricted. There's a difference of $535,000, or $525,000, excuse me. That's less expense, so that also increases the bottom line. There were increased salaries and benefits and capital outlay, but there was also a decrease in books and supplies, operating expenses, other outgo, and indirect costs. Some of that's related to, for instance, a lot of donations that are collected by the schools. We deferred those donations for them going into the next year, so they had less expenditures. And also the district had done some expenditure budgeting, but they did not expend it all. So again, that's 0.5%, also very close, very well done. So the excess of revenues over expense at this point would have been $13,343,000. I'm still in the blue column, but you made contributions to restricted programs. Special ed excess cost is a very tough thing to tie down, and it moves throughout the year. And very, very important programs, of course, mandated to be provided for students. The difference, though, was $517,000 less in contributions to those programs than were originally budgeted, and that is approximately a 3% difference. So the combination, and I highlighted them in green for you, of more revenue coming into the district, less expenditure, and the less amount you had to transfer to contributions for special ed, has a $1,655,000 brighter picture to the ending balance. You are still deficit spending, but instead of a $2,200,000 deficit spending, it's $549,000 in the current year. So I highlighted the then projected ending fund balance subject to the audit of $21,187,000 unrestricted. To take you then to the next slide. The unaudited ending fund balance of $21,187,000 then is designated to certain areas. Revolving cash of $15,000, stores of $17,716, a $3 million other commitment that the board set aside and is now going to help offset expenditures in the 18-19 budget. You probably remember that. That's a part of your $16 million intended expenditure reduction and revenue increase. And then the minimum reserve required by law of 3% unrestricted and restricted total expenditures is another $3,457,000 that must be designated aside. So the unassigned unappropriated amount at this point is projected to be $14,697,000. Again, following the yellow highlight number. Now we're leaving 17-18 and we're moving to your multi-year projection. So what I did was present to you, assuming the full implementation of the $16 million in increased revenues and decreased expenditures. The district revenues that you had in your multi-year projection when we went into the 45-day revise, you remember that was presented in August. So for instance, in 18-19 was $91,585,000. Now that's net of revenues, any transfers in, and you've got $1,007,000 coming in from one fund, another $700,000 coming in from another fund, one-time transfers, if you remember, from special reserves. That $91 million is net of all those revenues, and then we had the 45-day revise for Super COLA. So that would increase 18-19 by $633,000. Also, the governor took back one-time money to the amount of $1,007,000. But as you look across the 3 years, the $1,007,000 became $633 ongoing, $636 in 1920 ongoing, and then $623 in 2021 ongoing. It's a net of a plus $129,000 to the district. All districts across the state that are LCFF went through this iteration. So what has come to our attention is, especially since I was preparing the figures for fact finding, and I wanted to give them the most up-to-date figures, was the fact that as of a couple of days ago, the enrollment count this year that had been projected to be 10,955 students was at 10,882 students, which is a 73 drop over what had been projected drop, and that was a 7188 drop. And that drop won't hit the district because you're being held harmless because you've been in decline enrollment for 5-6 years. The state, even when we report, and I understand the new number is 10,851, so another 30 ADA drop that isn't even reflected here. The state will hold you harmless until 1920. If those numbers bear out, then they will then reduce it. So that's why I have the line that says reduction in enrollment, where 71 ADA is now, at this date, 101 ADA. 101 ADA times $8,999 is $899,000 projected. And I have it echo in 2021 because the trend is to continue to drop in enrollment. So it was important that you see that line on there because that's also going to be a part of fact-finding figures that were provided for the work that begins on Monday. So district expenditures are the same that were brought to you for the multi-year projection with the budget, the 45-day revise. So the net increase or decrease of deficit spending then reflects $2,942,000 in 1890 as a net of operations. Recall, you move $3 million in, you're moving $1,007,000, you're moving $700,000. That certainly helps that bottom line. So the $21 million assumed to be the final 17-18 balance becomes the beginning balance for 18-19. $24 million ending balance carries forward into 1920. And then what I did was a blue arrow to show you the continued reduction towards $7,151,000 at the end of the third year, recalling that there could be another $200,000+ in reduced ADA funds. So I just wanted you to see that representation, especially again since it's in that report. This is the restricted general fund. And the restricted general fund, as you know, these are programs that are restricted by either federal or state or donors. And that is a brighter picture as well, since the estimated actuals. You have received over $2 million in Prop 39 Clean Energy Job Act funds for projects that were approved by the state. So that reflects primarily that full number. There's a little bit of net of carryover balances in some of the title funds too that created that green figure of increase in revenue. Total expenditures, the expenditures were $776,000 less. Same types of things that were in the unrestricted. Some salaries and benefits were higher, books and supplies and service and outgo was lower, but the net result was $776,000. So that created an excess of $3,125,000 difference increase. And contributions to restricted programs, as I explained earlier, $517,000 less was transferred. So the net total is an increase of $2,608,000 in restricted and imbalance projected. And if you look at the green figure in the first column at the bottom, that's the projected ending balance then with that increase. And here's where those funds are. And they may not be used for anything else other than these programs. And I think since you've got a document that's, I don't know, almost 200 pages, I think it was really important for you to also see your special funds. This is a recap for each of them. Cafeteria fund ends brighter this year. She had a net increase in her fund balance of $118,000. Really good and efficient work monitoring the revenues and expenditures this year for that fund. And projected to end the year at $261,000. That's all set aside for revolving funds, stores, restriction to operations. Those funds are restricted. So that's $225,000 going into the new year. Deferred maintenance, there's a little amount that's sitting there that's making $50 a year interest. Maybe your new CBO will want to talk to you about just closing that. As you may know, in the new LCFF formula, the state gave you that formula and said, now you need to take your deferred maintenance money out of that. They no longer match those funds. You know, you're expected to take care of that out of those funds that are for all operations. So at some point you may want to close that. The Special Reserve for Post-Employment Benefits received some interest income this year. Recall that $1,755,000, $1,730,000 that is going to transfer to the general fund to help the unrestricted general fund balance in 18-19. You have 3 bond funds, building funds. That is like a small construction company in your district. And this last year, $17,772,000 worth of projects. And I think the Bond Oversight Committee is getting ready to have their meeting and their report on those funds by site for the entire year. Very handily managed by Rick and the maintenance department, all the contracts, the purchasing department, the amount of checks they have to write, contracts they monitor, really impressive work in that office. But they also brought in $35 million, as you recall, from a series issue in May. So most of the revenue is that series issue, and some of it is interest as well. And so the projected balance available going into the new year is $39,863,000, again, only for voter-approved language projects. $250 capital facilities, that's your developer fees that you collect for improvements on local properties. That had a $653,000 beginning balance, collected fees and some interest of $297,000 last year, only spent $22,000, have been really focused on the bond funds and the building for the bond funds. But those funds are available at $975,000 projected at the end of the year. The memo accounts of 510, 511, 512, and 513, you have to see those as a board, but they are completely maintained by the county assessor, county auditor, county treasurer, and they're paying your bonds. So they're collecting the taxes and paying the bonds. In fact, the county office posted these numbers. We don't even touch the books. But that's why it says memo only. Melrose, you have a Melrose, and actually that is being audited right now, and it had $1,405,000 balance as of the end of the year projected. That's paying off at about $575,000 a year, so it should be done soon. Self-insurance fund, that was the old workers' comp set aside. $700,000 of that, as you recall, is going into the general fund to help maintain the 18-19 balance. And then you also have student activities, student body funds that are monitored by the business office, and that's for all your elementaries and your junior highs and our middle schools. And that total is projected to be $175,000 for those accounts at the end of this fiscal year. Other items of note in this report, the district meets or exceeds special ed and Every Student Succeeds Act maintenance of effort. We have to monitor for that. It has to be met or exceeded, or then we have to scramble and figure out why not. And you met and exceeded and spent your funds accordingly. The independent audit firm is here, and they're working on 17-18 to make sure all these numbers are accurate. And the county office also sent us a draft approval letter for the budget and the LCAP. We requested that they have it signed and sent to us, so that we'll have it available also for the fact-finding binder to show that the county has approved your budget for 18-19. Were there any questions on any of this presentation? I'm sorry, I sometimes go a little quickly.
Any questions?
Yes. Thank you very much for your diligence and making this a little bit more readable than the 100+ pages.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes it's hard to simplify.
Yes. So a couple of things I want to clarify, or at least make sure that I understand correctly. One, we talked about the post-employment benefits of $1.7 million and self-insurance money of $700,000. That's one-time money, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we're using that one-time money to balance our budget 3 years out.
You're using it in 18-19. It's part of your $16 million
Okay.
transfer.
And I'm only saying that from the perspective of that we are pulling money from everywhere to try to keep us balanced for 3 years out so far.
It's part of that 16 million. In fact, if I may, sir, that you recall that slide that I had. Do I go to the left now to go back? Okay. That slide.
Right.
That slide gets to 7,151,000 at this point in time, if all those $60 million in increased revenues or decreased expenditures is realized over those 3 years. But in 18-19 is the $1,700,000, $3 million from committed ending balance of 17-18.
So we were handed a document, and I don't hold you accountable for anybody else's work. I just want to clarify if I understand any kind of correlation between the two numbers. It shows an unaudited actuals for 17-18, or I guess what we've got right now, right? That shows about $14,700,000 for unappropriated reserves.
Right.
Would you agree with that number?
And let me take you back to that, sir. Right there.
Okay.
The $21,187,000 general fund unrestricted ending balance is further designated, and one of the designations is not assigned. It's the $14,697,000, if that's in fact the same figure.
Right, right. And then it's being suggested that we're going to start 18-19, which we're currently in, and end up with $21,700,000. My concern is if, as I think anybody would be, if we're saying that we've got deficit spending, how are we increasing our reserves according to what was?
I'm sorry, you're referring to a figure of $21,700,000.
$100,000 that was handed to us. I'm just wondering, can you make heads or tails of?
I won't speak to a number I didn't create.
Okay.
And that doesn't correlate with anything that I have.
Okay. Just want to be clear. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
And I had a question. So thank you for this work. That was exactly my question as well. A respected gentleman and the union president came and presented numbers that seem to be in variance with what the county has approved our budget, right? And what we are able to show through a sequence of approvals on where our deficit is and where our actuals are, number one. And number two, I want to go back to the slide that shows restricted general fund.
The unrestricted general fund, sir?
Restricted general fund.
Restricted. This part or what the ending balance is?
No, there was one separate slide. The program reserve.
The program
this
reserves?
one. Yeah. So I want to again clarify for myself and the audience that this 5,236,000 and odd can be used only for the purposes that are listed there
Absolutely.
and is not available as an unrestricted fund.
That's correct. And that's true of all the special funds except for the two that are being transferred. Those were board designated special reserves. And so those were available to transfer back with board action, but most of those funds are not available.
Thank you. And so any accounting of this 5 million in other ways is incorrect and would lead to a wrong conclusion in terms of our budget. Is that correct?
You can't account for that 5 million any other way.
Thank you.
It must be spent that way.
Thank you.
And let me clarify a comment I made earlier. The document that was handed to you may include figures that were previously presented, but it wasn't vetted through me. I don't want to comment on numbers I haven't seen and worked with.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're
It is
welcome.
in the unaudited actuals, pages 3 and 4 of 17-18. It's behind what I gave you. Those numbers are your numbers. Whether Ms. Stark created them, I have no idea.
Okay, Bonnie?
So I have a question on variances in this first slide. It's the first slide. I know Nellie did, Ms. Yang did part of these, right? So I do want to commend, and as always, Nellie made a very narrow variance between our projections and our unaudited actuals. So I just want to confirm what you said, which is that the only variances that we show, our projections and our unaudited actuals, is this 1,000,006. Which came from these different things.
That's right.
Correct?
And I used to monitor school districts from a County Office of Education perspective, and for revenues and expenditures to be within 1/2% is phenomenal. Really good. Really good.
Just wanted to confirm that in your view, is it the case? It's the case that it was a very small variance. It
Very
wasn't
small
an
variance.
unusual variance. Okay.
And it's common for accountants to be conservative on their revenue and a little less conservative on expenditures. That's a common tenet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have to approve. Okay,
Yes, please.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved in second. All those in favor? Aye. Show the chair's aye. Motion passes.
Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
We go on to 4.2, approval of a resolution conflict of interest code that's been amended.
So the board is required to have a conflict of interest code that applies to itself and to management team members who make decisions relating to real estate and purchases and whatnot. That code is required to be evaluated and updated every 3 years. And so what is presented to you for approval tonight is an updated code that puts more specificity in the terms of the management team. You'll notice that instead of just simply saying directors report at a certain level, it has the actual titles of the directors and the people who report. Johanna has worked very closely with the county compliance officer on the development of this. She has approved it, and so we're bringing it to the board for approval.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, show the chair's aye. Motion passes. We go on to 4.3, approval of CNS surplus for public auction.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Gomez. The district has surplus kitchen equipment that is no longer used or no longer needed. A detailed list of items is attached to this memo. And the tables provide a description of the item, quantity, condition, and the asking price per piece. The estimated value of the surplus is approximately $188,149. With approval of disposal, the plan is to sell or recycle most of the items. Those that do not sell or can't be recycled will either be donated or disposed of. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution to dispose of the district surplus and or obsolete equipment and furniture.
Been moved. Second. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Show the chair is aye. Motion passes. Thank you. We go on to now 4.4, first read, Board Policy 4140, bargaining units. Carol?
Good evening, Board. This evening, we are doing the first read for Board Policy 4140(A), bargaining units. And being the first read, this is the recommended updated board policy by CSBA, which Senate Bill 866, this puts us in line with Senate Bill 866 that the governor signed after the Janus Supreme Court decision. So there were some regulations by law that we need to follow. So this board policy updates that so that we are knowing what the alignment is for that Senate Bill 866. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
So this is in compliance with the CSBA,
Oh,
number
yes.
one, and the state law,
Yes.
right? We have not made any edits to it.
No, this is CSBA's recommended updated policy for 4140.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, so that was one part of my question. The other is this. I know that there are a lot of uncertainty, and I read a decision by one of our legal contractors that we have. I'm just wondering if this is something that also was contributed to by our legal staff.
Yes, definitely. CSBA's legal staff, which is, and I went to their webinar on it. It is one of the law firms that we have used as well as
Perfect.
they have it vetted, yes.
Okay, wonderful. I just want to make sure that we've really got it down. All right, thank you very much. If there's a motion, I'll move.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved. Oh, okay. So,
Read.
okay, thank you.
We'll do it next
So
next month.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carol. Now we go on to 4.5, first read. Board Policy 3515.7, firearms on school grounds.
Thank you. Currently, our board policy 3515 contained within it is the prohibition of weapons within 1,000 feet of a school. There is updated policy from CSBA that the board is asked to do a first read on tonight, where it pulls out the firearm piece and it gives it its own special page. So it's a dedicated policy relating to firearms. This is just a first read.
I just want to thank Kathy and her cabinet for doing this. Unfortunately, we had that incident, and the first concern was making sure that we really were very clear and that there were no loopholes that would allow somebody to bring a firearm on campus, except by federal law. So really appreciate jumping on that very quickly. Also appreciate the district and holding their public meetings and having the community voice their concerns and such a quick response to those concerns.
Thank you very much. I was there and also very impressed with the amount of information and concern, and our Carol and Denise writing down everything so that we could go back and review all those items that we could do and what we cannot do. Okay.
So I like the policy, read it. There is an exception 626.9 for concealed carry, right, and explicitly removes the authority of the superintendent or designate to provide written permission for a person who holds a valid concealed carry weapon license to possess a firearm. Right? So while the letter on the paper and the statute are all clear, and we have closed any potential loophole, there is still this risk, right? And that's the law. So as citizens and community members, we just need to be aware of this. Right? And everyone needs to be vigilant, everyone needs to be careful and understand that this is a place of education, the school is a place of education. There's no reason to bring weapons into it. Right? So even though we have the updated policy, the law allows for certain concealed carry. Thank you.
And I believe there have to be federal deputies. For example, I have a family member who is a federal officer, and he could even get onto the airplanes, but he has to just state that he has a weapon. He then gets designated as a sky marshal. So there are certain laws that the federal government allows and entrusts the federal law enforcement to do, but hopefully we'll have some notice of that if anything like that occurs.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we go on to 5.1 enrollment report. Oh, okay, before Rick, we have Mr. Corpus on the enrollment report and Mr. Wheatley on the enrollment report.
What are we? Have we talked about this?
Mr. Corpus, you're first.
All right. We even dressed alike. What happened?
I think they're trying to silence me. It's a joke. Again, the CBID numbers that will be reported are, they've been built into the budget. That's been known for the past 4 or 5 years. And so, it's not a surprise. Hope nobody's surprised, nobody's like freaked out. This has been happening, and actually last year's numbers, the projected and then the actual were better than what they thought they would be listed right this year, not. But position control with Carol over there can take care of that. But don't be scared by those numbers. They've been around for, I just reviewed the last 3 budgets, and they were definitely in there.
Mr. Wheatley.
So I have some more information. Again, all I do is collate your information. I do not make up my own information, ever.
So I've done this for a couple of years. I've changed it a little bit, but I just think it's useful for you to see it. It helps me. I hope it helps you. So the combos, we've seen it before. I added smiley faces because the management team was able to collapse 5 combination classes. So you can see 1 at Clark at 2-3, 2 at Evergreen, 1 at Holly, and 1 down at Norwood. So I thought that deserved a smiley face because I know as a teacher, a straight class is much better for everybody than a combination class. Combination classes are budgetary in nature. So that's the first thing. I apologize for the lack of any numbers in the overflow. I asked for overflow numbers and I haven't been able to get them yet, so I apologize for that blank, but I'll sort of explain it in the next class size. So first of all, in primary, if a grade is listed there, it means it's at 25. Despite the fact that we have contract language that says 24 plus 1, and the intent of that language was to add the 25th when those unusual circumstances happen, like a kid coming in halfway through the year and creating a bus for them would be just too much. And yet if you look at Cadwalader, they are at 25 in 2nd and 3rd grade. If you look at Clark, they're at 25 in kindergarten, 2nd and 3rd, etc. I want to talk about Whaley because it's a unique case because it goes to the issue of overflow. They are currently at 25 at kindergarten, at 1st grade, and at 3rd grade. And this is where I wish I had the exact numbers. I'm not making this up, I'm estimating 10 or 11 kids, I believe, were overflowed out of Whaley. And what would have been wonderful is if those Whaley kids stayed at Whaley and a teacher was added in primary. And instead of an impaction at one of our Title I schools where there are 25 kindergartners and 25 first graders and 25 third graders in every single class, and I believe there's only one second grade that's at 24. Can you do it contractually? Of course. Should you do it? No. Because what you've just done in essence is shrunk Whaley even further. And look at the number. And let's talk about that last column, because that last column is new. And yes, I don't include SDC numbers because in general, SDC numbers get bussed in. It's a standard practice of the district management team when they look at numbers to not count. SDC absolutely counts, but in terms of home school, not so much. So Holly, 539. I remember when it was approaching 800. Catherine, 508. Dove, 421. Montgomery, 428. Whaley, as I mentioned, 375. It could have been at 386 and had a little space in primary. Laurelwood, before, and again, I'm estimating here, 10 or so kids were overflowed into Laurelwood. It was below 300 kids. And yet we still have 15 elementary schools.
So, I don't know if the community had access to this report, but I want to read out a paragraph. As of the 10th day of the 2018-19 school year, the student enrollment is 10,851. The aforementioned enrollment number represents 534 fewer students than last year's enrollment of 11,385. And contrary to what was said earlier, Evergreen experienced an additional decrease of 181 students this year. Okay, so this is something to be alarmed about. This is not something that we can just magically, Carol can fix it. Okay, we are under declining enrollment and budget pressure.
Okay, now let's go on to personnel reports. Do we have anything, Carol?
Yeah, Rick didn't present the item, but it's clear that the board has seen the report. Does the board have any questions for Rick?
When's the last day to do the report for the ADA purposes?
So CBED's Day is the first week in October, and that becomes our official date for looking at all things enrollment and ADA related.
Okay, so we're done with the report, with the reports and personnel. Anything, Carol? No, Carol? Future meetings, and again, we go October the 18th, the third Thursday, November the 8th, and then December the 13th. Okay, and there's nothing reportable out of our closed session.
You have information items, facilities master plan?
Well, yeah, is there any information on the facilities master plan?
Yes, I do have some information on the facilities master plan. Let me reveal it here. So last spring, a committee of district stakeholders, including teachers, administrators, students, and parents, came together to begin the work of envisioning what our schools could look like relative to the board authorizing the creation of a new facility master plan. We worked with a team from ADA's architects and provided them feedback. Over the summer, ADA synthesized the committee's thoughts and ideas, and they are planning to reconvene the committee for 2 follow-up workshops, the first of which is scheduled for Thursday, September 27th, and the second will follow at the end of October.
Can you provide the board with the makeup of that committee?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Just, and what I would like to see is just not a bio, but just a small background, understand what perspective that you're getting. I'm sure you've got some real estate people on there. Hopefully you've got some land use people on there and so on. Thank you.
Okay, is that it? Okay. We have a motion for adjournment? Okay, it's been moved, and all those in favor? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you for for attending.